Hello, everybody. Welcome to Get Ready for the Answer. And I'm going to answer a whole bunch of questions for you. There's many that were sent in already, and we'll get to them really soon. Here we go. Hi, everybody. I'm Bobby Owsinski, and you may know me from my books. Here's some of my recent ones. And thank you very much for all of those of you who helped the music mixing workbook go to number one. It's been number one for a while. It was in 3 different categories. Now I think it's just one category, but it's selling very well. Thank you very much. I hope you all enjoy it. You may know me from my blogs and podcasts and from my courses. But first of all, we're going to get to whole bunch of questions here that were sent in. I'm not seeing anything on the wait, let me get this up so I can see what's going on here. I'm not seeing any questions coming up. So let me just reload it here and get it going. I hope you can hear me. Not seeing any comments or anything, and usually there's some. So let's see what's going on here. Just bear with me for a second, see if I can get Facebook up to talk to me. Let's see. Is it talking to me? Here we go. No. Well, okay, we'll just carry on then. Here we go. Here's Facebook. Could have done this before. Sorry, I didn't do it. There we go. Now I can see everything. Not on the right screen, but it's coming up nonetheless. Here we go. So, here's the first question. From Scott Fennell. Okay, I just see somebody here. Just came in. David, cool. All right, from Scott, he says, looks like I have to add everybody. Okay, well, if that's the case, that's what we'll do. Scott says, I write, sing, and produce dance music, and getting a banging low end is what I struggle with. What are your suggestions on the topic? It's one of the things that everybody, regardless what music you work on, this is what everybody runs into. Probably what's happening is, especially if you're doing dance music, probably is you're using too much below 100 when you're EQing and not above 100. Everybody thinks that they have to activate those subwoofers, but the fact of the matter is there's usually plenty of low end there. And what you really want is 150. For a kick drum, it's more around 80, 100. For everything else, it's up, much higher. So, you're talking 120, 150 for a bass, and then it will speak better just about everywhere. It will speak better on big systems that have big subwoofers, like you're used to in a club for dance music, or it will, speak really well on a phone, for that matter. So that's the biggest problem that I usually see. The other thing would be balance. I have to say, though, if you're interested, you might want to check this out. Coming up on Sunday, I'm giving this free 3-part workshop, how to create mixes that sound like major label releases, and that's one of the things that we're going to talk about. So You can sign up for that, BobbyOwsinskiCourses.com/registration. You can sign up for that, and that will help you a bunch. Okay. Cool. Let's see, here's another one. Do you recommend running the final mix bus through a multiband compressor? Not if you don't need to. One of the things about a multiband compressor is everybody thinks they have to activate all the bands, and you don't. You only need to activate one or two, and for the most part, it's almost like a Band-Aid. I shouldn't say that. It's almost like a specialized processor. You shouldn't need it. But if there's a problem, it's there to help you. But it's usually only one or two bands that you're concerned with the multiband compressor. So, do I recommend running through it all the time? No. You shouldn't have to. That being said, if it's something that you put on you really like, you always use, well, then of course that's what you're going to do. Yes, it looks like I have to add people here. This is a new feature because it never was like that before. You can just get in before. It was pretty easy. I see a question from Harrison. I'm going to get to this in a little bit, okay? I think I'm getting what's going on here. Okay. Now I'm understanding what's happening here. Okay. Facebook changed this a little bit and how it's working. Or it's either Ecamm. Ecamm might have changed it too. Okay, let's go to the next question because I got a bunch more here. And then I'll get to all your questions that you have for putting in the comments. Let's see. Tom Narodi says, what's a good way to identify and fix phase issues? Well, there's two types of phase issues. There's acoustic phase and there's electronic phase. Electronic phase usually means that there's something that's wired backwards. It's not so much of a problem these days. It was for a long time. And the reason why, if you look at an XLR connector, there's 3 pins. And basically you have a neutral, a ground, and a hot. And sometimes in the 60s, 70s, what they started to do is change which one was hot. So it was pin 3 and then it was pin 2. And so that caused, some problems. So, you'd have to check that. But the easiest way, regardless what it is to just use the phase button, solo up 2 channels at a time, flip the phase, choose the one that has the most low end. That's the easiest way to do it. Just solo up 2 channels at a time. So there's always one channel that you're going to say, this is my champion. This is the one I'm going to compare everything to. So it might be your kick drum, for instance. That's probably the best way to do it. You have your kick drum, and then what you'll do is you'll solo up the snare drum, solo up the hi-hat, solo up overheads, solo up, whatever. You just keep on going down the road. And that's, with drums, with everything else, it would be the same thing. It would be, you flip the phase and you think, okay, does it have more low end or not? If it has more low end, you're in good shape. If it doesn't, or it gets hollow sounding, well, then you have a phase issue. And just select the phase selection that has the most low end. Easiest way to do it. Okay, here's a good one from Sean. Once mixed down and mastered, how and where do I get my songs placed in TV, film, video, and games? Yeah, that's what everybody wants, don't they? There's a few places that you can go on this. You can try taxi.com. They have a nice service. It's not too expensive. But you have to work at it. They don't get you the work. They basically say, well, here's some opportunities, go for it. So that's what happens. Another real good one is Chris SD's course. Um, and you should, if you're on my mailing list, I'll mail it when it happens. Sync Songwriter, he calls it. And that's an excellent course where he actually introduces you to music supervisors. So, and they give you feedback as well, what they like, what they don't like. So that I find that's something that's really rare. It's more expensive, but you get what you pay for. And that would be two places that you can start. Another place might be the IAMP, which is the Independent Music IMPA, Independent Music Publishers Association. And sometimes they can be of some help. It's worth being a member for $50, $60 a year. Those are some places to start. Okay, from Brian Bender. Have you figured out a way to mix on an iPhone speaker directly from your DAW as a second set of speakers? I feel like this kind of cuts to the chase and how well your mix will do on these devices. Nobody does that. For the most part, the thinking is the better sounding your mix, the better it's going to translate everywhere else. So rarely do people go and tweak something or make a mix just for that, because really then you get a mix that kind of works here but doesn't work anywhere else. So the feeling is, let me just make this sound as big and as fat and as round and as good as I can, and then it's really going to work across everything, and it should. If it doesn't, that means you've missed it. You have to go back and remix if it doesn't make it. And again, what I've found is kick and bass are usually EQ'd too low. And that's why the stuff doesn't translate then. When you get on small speakers, when you get on earbuds, it doesn't translate because you need low end that's higher, usually 100 and above rather than below 100. So you'll find that will save you the hassle of using an iPhone as a second speaker. All right, let's get your questions here. Okay, from Harrison. Huge fan. Oh, thank you, man. As a musician, I often find myself being usually critical of my own work. Yeah. How can I overcome the thoughts that my work is shocking and being confident in my music? Yeah, you bet. That's everybody goes through that. I think the biggest thing is you have to give yourself deadlines and stick to them. So then you don't get too overly critical. In other words, I have to get this song finished by the end of the month. It's going to be finished no matter what. It's done. Because if you're assigned to a label, that's what would happen. It's like, okay, we need this. We need it at a certain date. So you hit the certain date, you're done. A little bit more leeway than that, but it's pretty much the case. So the best way is, you can get over analytical. It's really easy. But you don't need to do that. All you need to do is, you have to feel confident that what you're coming out with is good. Get feedback from people. And try to get feedback from people that, your friends are good. That's a good place to start. They might not be critical enough. So what I'd say is, get feedback from people on SoundCloud or on socially and whatever, and find out where you're at. So, but the big thing is just keep on releasing. And the only way is not to get too critical on yourself. Everybody suffers from that, Harrison. Okay, from Peter. Sunny Devon. You know what? It was just raining like crazy here in Burbank, and the sun is out now. 2 minutes later, it's amazing. I mean, it was raining cats and dogs here. I'm glad. Devon's a great place. I've been there many times. I'm seeing modern analysis plugins. One about $450 seems best. SPL's a cheaper one. Are they worth it? What's an alternative for less? Well, I think the biggest question is, why do you need it? Is there something that you're not confident in, that you need more information on? Isotope has, I think it's cheaper. I know the one you're talking about from SPL. I think I just put it on my blog on Monday, as a matter of fact. Also, there should be a special on it, so it should be cheaper than $450. But again, I'll tell you one that I like. It's not intended to be an analyzer, but it has it built in, and that's Comparison AB, is it called? What it does, I can't think of the exact name. What it does, and it's from the same people. It's not from SPL. It's from Plugin Alliance, and it allows you to have a listen to what you're doing, compare it to other songs. But there's also an analysis tool in it that's great, that has most of those features. So I think you get an extra couple of features here, and it's less money. I want to say Comparison AB, but that's not it. But you just look on Plugin Alliance, it's something AB. But it's great. Okay, from Sean. Just want to thank you for your tireless work. Oh, my pleasure, man. Read your mixing engineer's handbook, recording our school, and help me lay the groundwork for a great career. Oh, man. So nice of you. Thanks. Glad to help. Okay, from David. Like to hear about that. What's your rule of thumb to decide distance to sing away from the mic with large diaphragm condenser mic? Oh, okay. This is easy. I think the rule is, what sound are you going for? Are you going for something intimate, and is it soft? So if it's soft, you're getting right up on top of it. I happen to have a microphone here, so makes it easier for me to illustrate with this one. So if it's something really soft and intimate, you're getting close. But that's not going to work for anything that's louder. So what I usually tell vocalists is, use your hand. Stay a hand away. And you might say, stay a fist away, but that's too close. So stay a hand away. And the best thing about that, it works better than a mark on the floor. You put a mark on the floor and it doesn't matter. They'll move back and forth. But if you tell them a hand, they'll be doing that after the first time you tell them. So it's really easy. Now you can expand that and you can say, give me a hand and a fist away, or give me two hands away. And I find that those intervals tend to work best depending on where you're at. Now, obviously, 2 hands away might, for a very loud singer, powerful singer, that would work, pretty well. But usually start with 1 hand away and see what happens. The other thing is where you're placing the microphone, and too many times it gets placed right at the lips. So as a result, you're picking up a lot of P's and a lot of garbage that you don't need. If you ever go back and look at the old Capitol Records, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin pictures of them in the studio, the microphone is always kind of at nose high, pointing down at the lips, and then all the P's go underneath. And it sounds just as good, if not better, when it's placed like that. So that's what you should do. And if you take notice with my mic here, I don't have it in front of me. I have it off to the side. I've experimented with all sorts of different ways, and this works just fine. So that's what I would do. Okay, from Eddie, how do I become the king of mixing? Practice, 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 Eddie. The more you do it, the better you get. I had one mixer, I can't remember who it was, tell me that it took him 100 mixes till he felt good about it. I think that's about right. You keep on learning tricks. It's not that you never stop learning, but at a certain point you become really comfortable with your techniques that you're using. And it takes a while to develop that because there's a lot of trial and error at first. There's a lot of stuff. I mean, if you just look at my 101 mixing tricks course, literally there's more than 101. It's like 110 that you get. So if you went through all those, you're certainly not going to use them all, especially where, for instance, I think there's like 7 or 8 just on snare drum. And they all get roughly the same sound, but they're different ways to do it, and, there's slightly different effects. So, the thing is, you have to kind of build up those bag of tricks and things that work for you and things that don't. Or things that only work occasionally. That's the other thing. See, well, one of the things that, as you get better, you find you can work under pressure better, where you don't think too hard about it. All you think is, I know this worked before, this is what I'm going to go with, and you use your first instinct. But it takes a while to build that instinct up. And I think what we all find is when we use our first instinct, it works best. So that's the way to do it. I hope I helped you in that. Oh, by the way, I'll go back to the king of mixing. That's what we're all trying to get to. So I don't know who the current king is, but one of the interesting things is, if you go to my workshop on Sunday, I'm going to show you a brand new trick, and this is getting levels. So the whole idea is there's one of the godfathers of engineering and producing is Tom Dowd. Tom Dowd did like the Allman Brothers and Cream and Eric Clapton and from that era. But I learned a trick from someone that worked with them, and the trick was he could get a mix together by not even listening to it, but just looking at the meters. And he knew exactly where to place everything by where they were in the meters. So I began to think, well, wait a second. And this is on VU meters, which, react different than the meters that we use, the peak meters that we use now. So I began to think, how can I make this work with peak meters on the average DAW? And that's something I'm going to show you, where you can, just 4 or 5 levels. It's like, okay, kick is always going to be here, vocal is going to be here, snare is going to be here, and it will get you in the ballpark for a rough mix in 5 minutes. I mean, you get there really fast. Doesn't mean it's going to stay like that. It just means it gets you in the ballpark, and it's something I'm going to show you starting on Sunday. Okay, from Jacob. Thanks for doing it. Yeah, my pleasure, man. I haven't done one in a while. I think this is the first one of the year. Any advice for getting a massive guitar sound? If all the elements in my work, falls furthest from the mark. Well, a lot of it is in recording, to be honest with you. So much of what we try to do is many times is compensating for what didn't happen in recording. So that's why, recording is so important and overlooked many times. That's why you'll find, multiple mics sometimes used for recording a guitar sound. Different types of microphones. Most popular right now is a Royer R101 with a 57. But I've had good results with the U67 and U87 and things that you wouldn't think, but it just makes it sound big. The thing is, when you're getting your sounds, get the good sound first. So when you're recording, if it doesn't sound the way you think it should, keep working it, because that's what we do when we make records. We work it and work it and work it. We try different amps, different guitars, different microphone combinations, different placements in the room, that's, you keep working it until you get what you want that's actually being recorded. So that's number one. Number two, I think, is you can try doubling it. I hate it when people go to 3 and 4 and 10 different parts that are all doing the same thing, because it doesn't help it sound bigger. You can get great sounds with just one single track. But if you should double it, the best thing is make sure the double is different. So that means a different amp, different guitar, or at the very least a different pickup. Sometimes playing it up an octave helps. So things like that, any of those things will help. Those are just typical production tricks. But get the guitar sound first. It's something everybody deals with, to be honest with you, trying to get it to sound good. But I would say, if it sounds really good, if you're happy with the guitar sound when you hear it in the room, then do whatever you can to capture that. If you're not happy with it there, you're not going to fix it later, not the way you want. So do whatever you have to make it sound bigger. One of the things that I found is really interesting, the new guitar simulators are so good. I was on the listening team for the Helix. And believe me, I didn't do much on this, but what they did is they sent a bunch of tests, and it was the real thing. So in other words, it might have been a 59 bassman, mic with a C12 or something like, a really great signal path with the against the simulation. And after a while, I could tell exactly what the simulation was, because you just have to know what to look for. But I got to tell you, 9 times out of 10, I prefer the simulation over the real thing. So, consider that as well. Okay, from Manuel. Oh, Bobby, how would you suggest a monitor low frequency having a 5-inch monitor and headphones? Well, that's a problem because you're not really hearing a lot of the low end that you need. But I would say what you should do is play back some reference material that you know what it sounds like. You know what the low end sounds like. You're sure of it, and then try to match it. That's the first thing. Don't try to make it bigger than it should be, and you'll find you'll get a reference song. There'll be a song you'll go, man, this is awesome. Love the way this sounds. Love the way it translates everywhere. And then you'll play it back, and you'll go, well, it's not quite as big sounding here as I thought, and my mixes are bigger, and that kind of means, well, I'm using too much. The other thing I would do, if you're using headphones, use one of the room simulators. My favorite, although I haven't used them all, to be honest with you, is the Abbey Road Studio 3, which works really well, and that will give you a pretty good idea. Now they have the Ocean Way one. I haven't tried that, to be honest with you. Stephen Slate has one. I think headphones or simulations that I've heard are really good. So there's lots of different ways to do that, but I would say get one of those things and try it. Okay, from Peter. Metric AB, yes, that's it. Yeah, that's my favorite, and I got to tell you, use it all the time, especially for things like this. I have 5 or 6 songs that I always listen to, mostly because they have different things going on. And I will listen and listen against my tracks, and it's invaluable because you go, oh, wait, I really missed it on this. Or, oh, yeah, okay, this is right on. Or I don't have enough of that, or whatever. So it's worth it. Just the A-B things that you can do are fantastic on it. But just recently, they put all these analysis tools in it as well. So, that's cool too. That didn't happen until this latest version. Wow, 100. Not sure what you're referring to. But wow. Alejandro, hello. Hope everything's okay there. Best wishes. Yes, everything is just fine here. Thanks. I hope with you too. We've been doing well here. Okay, from Eddie. It's my problem recording in bedroom trying to get the snare to pop. Yeah. Again, there's so much that has to do with the way something is recorded. With drums especially, it goes another step, because another 2 steps. Not only does the environment make a big difference, but the drums itself. And the drummer especially. Here's a little story. I used to be a teacher at Berklee College of Music way, way back. And I was in charge of the performance center. And we had cameras, and this is way, way, way early in this, but there are cameras that were, and all tie lines connected to the recording studio. So we'd record most everything that happened that was happening live in the performance center. Performance center is big, it's 2,000 people, something like that. And of course, we'd watch it on the camera. And I can remember we were doing something, and the Saturday Night Live band was the backup band. Might have been Lou Rawls or somebody like that. And I can remember somebody sitting down the drums. They were rented drums, and got the drum sounded okay. And then Steve Jordan, who was in the band at that point, the drummer, he came in, and I can remember him going around and just playing and tapping and going, oh, God, these sound so horrible. I thought, doesn't sound so bad for me. And then he started to play, and they exploded. And exploded in a good way. It means all of a sudden it was like, oh, my God, they're so huge. So it's another example of it's the player more than anything. The player can make something bad pop. Same thing with a guitar player. You think, so here's another example. I used to play with Mick Taylor from the Rolling Stones. I was his musical director. And Mick, on one tour, didn't bring a guitar. And what he did is he relied on a fan to bring him a different guitar every night, and he would use something different. And he got some absolute garbage that was thrown his way. But every night it sounded like Mick. Didn't matter what he was playing, it sounded like him. So a lot of it has to do with the player. Hey, David, those 2 tracks behind you, around what frequencies do they fix? Did you make them? No, they're from a company called ASC, Acoustic Sciences Corporation. They're a combination, 3 things. They're a diffuser depending on which way you turn them. They're an absorber, and they're also a low-end baffle. So they're doing, 3 different things. I don't know. They're pretty wide band, to be honest with you. But you're only seeing some of them. They're spread all over the room. I think I have 16 of them. In front of me, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 of them in front of me. There's one in every corner. And so, you're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. But they sound great. They make it sound great. ASC tube traps is what they're called. And they work as bass traps too. So, but I don't know the frequency, to be honest with you. Use your advice. Oh, with the view meters. Oh, okay, yeah. What he means is I have shown in different workshops, and it's in my courses as well, how to get bass and drums to work together by using the VU meters, get the right levels. And the whole idea is the kick and the snare and the bass, they all have to go on a VU meter where they're somewhere in between -5 and -7. If you do that, it works pretty well. Now, that's all well and good, but now what do you do with the rest of the instruments? And then, the other thing is, okay, you bring the vocal in so it's somewhere in that neighborhood. You build the rest around it. That's the best and easiest way to do it by ear. But what I'm going to show you in the workshop on Sunday is that you can put everything in. And I have a big session with 50-some tracks where multiple keyboards, multiple guitars, lots of background vocals, like 10 background vocals, a horn section, everything. We're putting it in, doing it in no time at all. Yeah, man. But see, you graduate from the conservatory, which is a great place. You need experience. That's what we all do. That's what we need. Oh, Christopher, I play in a small rock duo. We do a recording at home because of budget. Yep. Sennheiser MK4 and Steinberg interface at Yamaha HS5s. What can I improve? What can I do about bad rooms if I can't do much with the acoustics? Well, you can with the acoustics. Look online. There's a lecture I gave at Nimbus Recording Studio in Vancouver about how to improve your room for $150 or less, which tells you everything you need to know. And basically what you're doing is you're making some sound panels, some absorption panels that you're putting around you in the right places. And and that's what I have here. I have the tube traps, but I also have a bunch of panels. I have 2, 4, 6. I have 8 panels. But I show you how to make them yourself. And for not that much money, you can really make a big improvement in your room acoustically. You can't change anything in terms of isolation. And isolation is what a lot of people want and need, but that's expensive. There's no way around it. There's just nothing except big, thick walls. But that would be the first thing, is make sure that you can't mix it if you can't hear it. So make sure what you're hearing is good. The whole idea is you put up what they call an RFZ, a reflection-free zone. So it's on the sides and above you. And the monitors that you have, wherever they're bouncing off a wall, you make that soft. And then behind you, there's a couple of things you can do. You can make it soft, like I have back there with the panel, or just put a bookcase back there. And it doesn't have to be filled with books, just some books and knickknacks and stuff like that. Then it acts as a diffuser, it acts as an absorber, and it works really well. I had one of those in the back for a long time. And the only reason why I took it out is I had extra tube traps, so I put them back there. But that would be the first thing. The next thing would be monitors. Move up to in monitors, and that will help you. And then after that would be the interface. Move up in interface quality. Okay, from Johannes, how do you make vocals shine without the harshness? Well, probably, again, a lot of this is recording. When something is recorded with a really high-end microphone, C12, U47, and there is, a sheen that you get. That's why people use those things. So you're competing with that. That being said, the easiest way is the airband. What is the airband? It's 10K and above. Usually there's not enough of that. And you find that when you add that, suddenly you do get a sheen, but you get a realism, is the best way I can put it. Now, if you take notice, there's some EQs that have a dedicated airband. The Maag EQ4 MAAG is one of the best for that, and their airband goes out to 40K. Surprisingly, it sounds really good at that. But using that airband makes a big difference. So, and it doesn't sound harsh. The harshness is, your 3-4K in there, maybe a little lower sometimes. So, you want to stay away from that. A tad every now and then will help bring it to the front of the mix, but, what you're looking for is up higher. Alejandro asks, what do you think about the Ssl New Interfaces? I don't know. I haven't tried them. Yeah, it's funny. Once upon a time, I used to try a lot of new stuff. People would send me stuff, and I asked them not to do that anymore. And it's a time issue. Like I don't really want to spend the time of pulling my stuff apart and trying something new. So I just use what I use, and it works. And when I have to use something else, or if I have to get something else for another reason, then I'll try a bunch of stuff and then I'll know. But no, honestly, I have no experience with them. You're better off talking to a dealer, somebody at Sweetwater or GC Pro or something. They'll tell you more. Please rate my headphones. I can't. If you like them, then, then they work. All this stuff is the same. If it works for you, then it's good. Just because somebody else uses it doesn't mean it'll work for you. So I have a pair of, I use Status right here, but I have a pair of MKH 50s that I love and I go to all the time. They're really good. But I can't rate them for you. You have to do that. Chris says, I enjoy recording bands playing live in the studio. Yeah, no kidding. For a rock band, any tips on making sure the guitar and bass tones work well together, especially so the bass can hear themselves without deafening anybody? Yeah. I think you're asking two questions there. One question would be how the guitar and bass work together. What I've found is guitar players that use too much low end conflict with the bass. And if they use less, it fits better. And that's what we do a lot in mixing. We roll off the low end of guitars. So that, it's the big thing. The other thing would be just the opposite. If you have a bass player that has it plays with the pick and uses a lot of high end, that could get in the way of guitars. Not saying that's a bad thing. That's a sound that people have, but you have to tame it sometimes. So for sure, with the bass especially, it needs to be compressed and maybe limited. You put a limiter 12-1 on and just make sure it stays steady, and then it usually helps. But if you're talking about the bass guitar, and the bassists can hear themselves without deafening anyone. You mean on a Q send, for instance, Q system? It's level, but sometimes 700. You give him some extra 700, and that'll cut through the mix. So just do it on his particular channel, and it should work pretty well. It's surprising how well it works. Okay, from Michael. Hello from Burbank. Are there any bass frequencies you boost in order to make it more audible in small phone speakers? Yeah. Oh, we talked about this before. It's above 100, not below 100. 120 to 150 will make it speak. Maybe even higher, depending on the arrangement, the mix. You're usually looking between 120 and 240. There's more low end there than you think. And that's what makes it speak on smaller speakers. So the mistake many people make is they go down to 60 and they boost it there. And it just muddies everything up. Yes, you need some of that for girth, but you'd be surprised. You can even roll that off. You can roll it off at 60 or even higher sometimes, and as long as you got enough 100, 120, 150, it's going to sound like you got low end. So that would be the big thing. It's above 100, not below. Oh, from Chris again. Regarding acoustics, any tips on how to use and interpret REW results or any useful resources? Tell us how to interpret different graphs. Honestly, I wouldn't get too wrapped up in all of that. When you start to do that, you begin to mix with your eyes and not your ears. So be really careful that doesn't happen. Your ears are more important. There are some mixers that mix with their eyes closed because there's fewer distractions. That's a good trick to do. But be really careful when you get to analysis, different analysis. The only time you should have to go to that is when you got a really bad problem. Now, if you're talking about your room, it's really hard to do your own room, especially if you don't know what you're doing. The really good room tuners have done hundreds of rooms, so they come in and they any room they can make sound better. But if you're just doing, I think that the biggest problem if you're doing it yourself is not taking enough, not capturing in enough places. You have to take samples in different places, and if you only do it where you're listening, that doesn't work. The more you take, the better idea you'll have. So that's the biggest thing. But it's tough. I have not been able to do my own room like that. I haven't liked it any better than just mixing without it. So Dalibor, hello. I'm your big fan. Oh, glad I have one. Some of your books too. Can you tell us something about Rockwell boards and health issues regarding them? There's no health issues with Rockwell. The health issues are with fiberglass. That's why people like to use Rockwell, because there's none of the problems that fiberglass gives you. For decades, what we used was compressed fiberglass by Owens Corning. It was OC703 is what was in every studio, every place, every listening environment. That's what was used. And it was originally, the fluffy fiberglass. Well, it's not like that. It's compressed, so it's a board. And because it's fiberglass, you'd itch, and it gets in your lungs, and it'd be really bad for you. So that's why Rockwell, everybody switched to Rockwell. Not only are the acoustic characteristics a little bit better, just slightly, but it has no side effects like that. So yeah, I know you're confusing it with fiberglass. Okay, from David. In a small dead room, 14 by 16, we use room mics on drums. Or just use plugins to add some room. Well, does the room sound good? And if it's a particularly good sounding room, sure, it's worth a try. But I think the biggest question is why. what sound are you looking for? There are some engineers that like a microphone 3 foot back or two, and they use a lot of it in their drum sound. So, it wouldn't matter. And again, the whole idea is you're getting the sound of the whole kit, not necessarily, not the room. It's a kit mic. But, the reason why we use room mics is because we had really good sounding rooms, and we wanted to capture some of that so we wouldn't have to use reverb. Especially in the early days, you did that because you didn't have that many reverbs. But just put room mics up to put them up. I don't know. Better sound really good. Tiago, hello. Is there any technique you would point out about using reverb without muddying the mix? Yep. Currently EQ the reverb wet, sometimes compress the wet signal, reacting to the dry signal, leave the tail. Yeah, these are good. The best thing is you roll off the low end. You roll it off maybe severely to 500 or 600 hertz. And you find it fits better. You just don't need low end on reverb. And the high end too. You can get rid of that and you'd be surprised how well it fits. What I call the Abbey Road reverb trick. And I got this because this is what they used to use at Abbey Road. I'm told they don't anymore, which is why I don't really call it that. But they roll that filter set, an old analog filter set. They rolled off everything below 600 on the low end and everything above 10K. And that's what was on their plates. So, yeah, good approach. Here you mentioned a new edition of Mixer's Handbook. It's not close, let's put it like that. But there will be one eventually. But it's not close. I thought there might be one this year, but I doubt it. There are other things I'm working on. Besides, it just came out with the mixing workbook, which is the companion to that. And it took a long time, so. Oh, okay, we just had that one. Alejandro. Moving from place to place every time, I always forget about acoustics. I had the same doubts as Chris and Alba, but not anymore. Yeah, it's one of those things. You move from place to place, things change. You have to take that into account. Two more questions. Yeah. Recommend software which we can achieve a good drum sound. At the moment, we use Easy Drummer from TuneTrack. Can't record acoustic drums. Mixing, editing, and drums. Easy Drummer is not optimal. Trying to think. I used BFD for a long time, and now I'm using Slate, but mostly for the triggers. What I would suggest is, if you can get a drummer to just give you MIDI out and play on pads, and then you might find it will work better. Easy Drummer. I'm not so sure about the sounds. The reason why I went to Slate is I like the sounds better, just in the regular library. I've tried a bunch of libraries, and I like theirs a lot. And it's kind of easy. But again, I don't use it I use it as a trigger. So kick and snare, maybe toms. But I can't tell you more than that. I haven't tried them all. A good interface, maybe up to $1,200. Well, I'm big on the Universal Apollos. So I'm using here Apollo Twin 2. And I had a Twin 1 before, and they've been great. I also have a bigger Twin, one of the 8-channel ones, or bigger Apollo, one of the 8-channel ones. That's in another place. Apogee makes good stuff too. You can't go wrong with them. I would stay with either of those, be honest with you. I hear that, and those are the ones I run into, by the way. Apogees, especially if you go to some of the bigger places, they tend to have apogees or burls these days. But you can't go wrong. You get a big bang for the buck with Universal Audio. Oh, top 3 reverb plugins. Yeah. We try to put them in order. I think my favorite right now is the CLA Epic from Waves. Reverb and delay, and it's outstandingly good. Just works. I like the stuff from the Seventh Heaven as well. They make good stuff. It's Bricasti, so it's real good. And I do like the Abbey Road reverbs as well, again from Waves. Capital Chambers, maybe a little better from UAD. That's pretty special. Okay, one more. Sorry for fiberglass. Any tips on mixing backing vocals? Yeah. Mention putting a chorus effect in. Well, wait. You only use the chorus effect if you need to make them bigger. So if maybe you have mono backing vocals and you need them to be wide, then a chorus or flange works great, one or the other. If they don't sound as thick as you need to be, then some sort of modulation works great. If they already sound good, then no, you don't use it. I think the biggest thing is, are they competing with the lead vocal? And if they are, dip a little at 2K. So that usually solves the problem. It's really simple. George, hi. Hello, nice to meet you too. Justin, what's your opinion of room correction software like SonarWorks? I have no opinion on SonarWorks. They sent me an early package. I couldn't get it to work, and I just didn't do it, after that. Again, it's one of these things, it's a time issue. If I can't get something rolling really fast, I usually just, go do something else and forget about it. And that's what happened with SonarWorks, and I wish I would have given it a better shot. So I hear really great things, but I have no opinion because I haven't really played with it. I should one day. From Raul, what's your advice to newbie at mixing, specifically with vocals as a dry mix, then with adding effects? Well, I think the biggest thing I can tell you is get the vocal in the mix as soon as possible. One of the biggest newbie mistakes is getting the whole band together and then putting the vocal in last. And when you do that, then you find there's no space for it. So it's either too loud, too soft. I recommend getting your rhythm section together, bass and drums, whatever's acting as drums, and then put the vocal in and build everything around it. It'll always be at the right level. So that's the first thing. When you're talking about delay and reverb, you usually don't need a lot to make it work. You're trying to put it into a space. I would try delays first and see if you can make it work with the delay. Something in the 350 millisecond range, like 20% feedback, something like that. And it will give it a nice reverb effect, and we'll fill in spaces and holes and stuff. That's a good place to start. Reverb. A good place to start would be take a reverb, put it at about 2 seconds, put the pre-delay at 150 milliseconds and see if that works for you. Those are good settings. First analog mixing board that you purchased yourself. It's a good question. I think it was a Shure. And the same people who make microphones, they made various mixers. They were all good quality. I think that's what it was. One of their higher end ones. But that's the one that comes to mind. A long time ago. The first studio console that I worked on was an API that was really good. And then I went to an MCI, which MCI was really big at the time, especially on the East Coast. They're all over the place. So I had more experience at the MCI when I was young than the API. But I was lucky because I was on good gear. As you mentioned, some cats like a pair from the kit quite close in addition to the overheads. Cymbals sound dark from the front. I'm going to try this as well as miking a kick. 2 on the snare, 7 mics, maybe a ribbon mono center. Yeah, that's a good way. There's no one way to do it. Everybody has a different way. One of the best drum sounds I ever got was 4 mics, kick, snare, and stereo overheads that were X wide. That's fantastic. And I got so many compliments from that, and it was just like, well, pretty simple. Why did I become an audio engineer? Well, I was a guitar player, keyboard player, and I went to college to learn electronic engineering because I wanted to find out where the electrons went. It couldn't tell us much then, to be honest with you. It was, stuff that didn't apply to what I wanted. But so I was always dabbling in tape recorders and studio and everything while I was a player, and then more so as things went on. And then eventually I didn't want to be a player anymore. I just got tired of touring, so I wanted to stay home. That's what happened. Oh, Shure Vocal Master. I remember those. Yeah. Terry, what's a solid microphone preamp that works well on almost everything? Looking for a warm audio 412 right now. Warm audio is really good. Let's see. I'm trying to think of what they are. I think 312s. Maybe it's a 412. But I have a couple of them, and I've really liked them. You can't go wrong with warm audio stuff for the most part. It's not exactly like, the equipment that it looks like. It's not exactly like that, but it's close enough in the ballpark, and it sounds pretty good. I'll tell you another one I really like is the Golden Age Preamps. They make a Neve clone. That's actually what I used here in my podcast for a long time. In my livecast setup, it went into a Golden Age pre-73, I think. I don't even remember how I got it, but it was here. I was like, oh, we'll try it. And it went into that before it went into my Apollo Twin. Now I have a Rupert Neve Sheffield channel, so it's several steps beyond that. From Adam, tell us about drummers you've worked with who've had really great kit sounds. What is from your perspective that made the kit work so well? Yeah. What would you tell drummers to do to make their kit sound great for you? great drummers always have great sounding kits. What makes them sound so good? New heads, and they're tuned well. That's the biggest thing. So many drummers don't tune their own drums. In Hollywood here, Los Angeles, there's a couple of places we go to, Drum Doctor, Drum Paradise, and they'll come in, they'll tune the drums for you. Drummers don't mind. They don't really like to do it many times. There's some that do, but many don't. So drum doctors will come in and replace all the heads, tune everything up, hang with you until you get sounds, and then leave. So, it's kind of worth its weight in gold. But those are the two things: brand new heads, can't beat, and really well-tuned drums. What do I mean by well-tuned? There's no symbiotic noises. If you hit, for instance, the tom, the snares don't rattle. If you hit the snares, the toms don't. You don't hear that drone. That's when you have a good sounding kit. We're going to send questions to your next live mixing sessions. I think I'm going to show you in a little bit. And actually, now it's probably a good time to quit here. Last question. Have any tips for taming harsh vocal resonances like sharp whistle peaks? Yeah. Traditionally, you'd use a de-esser for that. Maybe two. And now it might be better to use a dynamic EQ because you have more control. That's what I do. I use a dynamic EQ because I can control 3 or 4 or 5 different frequencies rather than just 1 or 2. All right. So thanks very much. Once again, I want to tell you about my workshop, Music Mixing Secrets, coming up. 3-part workshop. It starts on Sunday. So you can register, BobbyOwsinskiCourses.com/registration. It's a simple registration, and I'll send you the rest of the info after that. But I'll cover some brand new stuff that I've never showed anybody, so I think you'll like it. And if you want to send me questions, that's where you go. Questions@BobbyOwsinski.com. I will tell you everything you need to know, or that will get to me. I'll answer your questions, and we'll have them here for the next live cast. And also, there's lots of free PDFs and ebooks that you can get at free-resources, BobbyOwsinski.com. All right, everybody, thanks a lot for being here. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed doing it as well. So I will talk to you soon. I hope to see you all in the workshop coming up.